Here we go. Hello, welcome to CEO Insights, the Living Organization
Mm,
podcast. And with me is Teresa Roche. First of all, welcome, Teresa.
thank you.
It's the
Glad to be
second
here.
time. Oh,
Mm,
I'm really glad you're here. It's the second time you're on because I really loved our last conversation. So, and
ah,
Teresa is the in charge of the human resources of City of Fort Collins, a very
mhm.
large organization. I think like what, 1,000 plus. How many people?
About 2,400.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay, I missed a
Yeah.
few, just
Yeah,
a
it's
few.
okay. And every one of them matters.
And every one of them matters.
hmm
Exactly. That's beautiful. Teresa, tell us, you gave me a couple of very beautiful quotes, and that could be the theme of our podcast today.
Mm,
Give me those couple of quotes, please.
yeah. Well, the first one I shared was Robert Pullman, the author. And I believe the words are after food, shelter, and nourishment, the thing we need most is stories. And then I told you one of my favorites from Brene Brown. What if stories are just data with soul?
What if stories are data with soul?
That beautiful?
You're speaking to an engineer that
Oh, engineers, when you get into their heart space, they tell the best stories. So you can't fool me, Vitaly.
that's true.
Nice
That's
try. Nice try.
no, but I could imagine the data part, and I go, Soul, where is the soul part?
Oh,
Oh, that's funny. So what does that mean if we took it as a theme
hmm,
for today's organization? What does it mean that after all the food and so on, we need stories? Why is it important in an
hmm,
organization?
yeah. Vitaly, there are different ways I could enter in answering that question. One might be to look at the tried and true model of Maslow's need hierarchy, where you have to take care of basic needs. And interestingly enough, Richard Leader, who did a lot on purpose, said that Maslow actually had a sixth, which was purpose, but he only published that in one obscure journal. But if you think about that hierarchy, if you don't have security, food, like feeling like you're provided for, it's hard too. So I think stories come into play when you're trying to work with others and the basic needs are being taken care of. And so in an organization, it might be pay, benefits, the tools they need to work. But I think stories are what move people to purpose. And in our case, to a level of service for a community. So let me pause there because I could say a lot, but I want to pause and see if that answers your question enough.
Wow, let's say it again. The stories move people to purpose.
Yeah.
Is that what you said, right?
Yeah. And it's a process of them telling stories because I find when people tell story in the public space, even if it's just between two people, you can't help but be transformed, the storyteller and the listener. And then as an organization, if you tell stories, in our case of service to the community, um, people get attached in a heart space or maybe even a head space. So it has the possibility, and I've been really fortunate to work at organizations where we actively talk about storytelling.
Hmm. And I mentioned to you that
Mm,
as a leader, like you
yeah,
and the CEO and all the executive team,
yeah,
we could become the chief, or not chief, like if we don't like the
yeah,
chief part, we could become all story catchers, right? All stories
absolutely.
multipliers.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's people I've had the joy of working with in the past and now who I would definitely say if I had to write their profile, story catcher. That's a great word.
Mm. This it comes, of course, American Indian dream catchers, which is dreams are
Yeah,
stories. It just
absolutely. Yeah, don't get me going on that.
we'll have a whole Jungian
Yeah, yeah, we can.
session.
Um,
That could be. So as an executive, though, me and
mhm,
you,
yeah,
one might say, well, nice guys that that's all soft stuff, but I got a profitability thing to run. I gotta meet my obligations to the community.
mhm,
Seems too a little vague and too soft. What's the
yeah.
connection between the soft and the hard
Mm.
results?
Well, I think. even that question that someone may ask you or me implies it's binary, either or.
Mhm.
And I guess I've lived my life in that intersectionality. So I think about when I served in the private sector, engineers and scientists would talk with great depth about something they were creating that might do something for someone's health, or might do something to help a group of people move forward. Um, a CEO that I worked with and our city manager now, when they tell stories, like they capture and catch around the world, or in our case, here locally, people listen. And I think stories are the great development. I think they do great development, because they give meaning and people can see them if they're visual, or it can be somatic. So that's what I would start to say. But let's say, and I did have the pleasure of working with engineers and scientists, I would not try to convince somebody. I probably would create the conditions and ask them questions so they themselves would start to tell a story. And that experience could shift them. When I was at Agilent, last story I'll say about this, we actually knew that our leaders were our greatest teachers. And there's nothing more profound than a leader who's been there, done that, telling another, as opposed to someone that might be from a theoretical point of view, like this is what you should do to, work with your customers or your employees. Um, we would actually spend time with them to call the story before they presented in global, virtual, or face to face. And Vitali, I said that was last thing I was going to say, but this week, and next week, I'm meeting with some of our leaders here in the city. I'm asking them to tell me a story, and then we're going to create a panel where the questions will allow them to tell that to, 300 other managers in the city.
Wow. So that's
Yeah.
that you're literally kind of almost took the words out of my mouth.
Mm,
If we institutionalize, make it a process,
mm,
an official, process
yeah.
in the company where we allow support the leaders to tell
Yep.
those stories and like TEDx, like an internal TED
It
Talks, right?
is. Yeah. And Tally, I have to tell you, we've had some of the most amazing leaders who went to do other things in the community. And I would ask them, may I hold a storytelling circle with you? And I would just invite people. And, some would say, really, you think I have a story? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And so that's what I would call it, storytelling circle with, Paul, storytelling circle with, and yeah, because I never want anyone to leave and we don't catch their stories.
Yeah, it's almost like this is what keeps the organizational soul alive. The
Yeah,
stories are like food for the soul, right?
they are. They're for the soul and heart, and also the mind.
In the
Now,
mind.
you may not be visual like me, but I can see things.
Yeah.
I see a story, and then I keep that in my memory.
Well, actually, I am visual. I'm mostly visual.
Are
When
you
I
really?
read a
Mm,
picture, a person doing
yeah.
things, I'm a movie maker in my head. Yeah.
Oh man, you're giving me all these great words. I'm gonna say, I think I might be a storyteller, and I'm a movie maker in my mind. Yeah, that's great. I gotta write that down.
Well, it is. That's what literally is happening.
Oh,
I see scenes. Some people are
mm,
more like mathematical.
yeah,
They work
yeah,
on logic. Yeah.
yeah,
But either way, when we combine logic with stories, with what you're saying, with data, with
absolutely.
soul, as you
Yep,
said, then what we're getting is we're covering both sides of the, and so
yep,
the data people hear their data.
yep.
Okay, we got the ROIs and the ERBITs and but the other people, which is a lot,
Hmm.
they hear emotionally. They receive
Yeah,
the vision, right? Mm.
yeah. You know, again, I've been fortunate to work with some of the most amazing executives in my life. And when I look at Brene Brown's quote, stories are just data with soul. One of them, when I said, how will you know if what my global team is doing to develop leaders is actually having an impact? And we did all kinds of things to tie it to business results. but there's all kinds of facts you can provide. You know, if you go up the levels of evaluation from Kirkpatrick. And he said to me, Teresa, that'll be interesting. So, yes, I'd like that. But what I want to hear are the stories from the people and the stories from the managers of those people. That's how I'll know. I mean, isn't that a beautiful invitation to receive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You literally confirmed one of the top CEOs I've spoken. He said the way I turned around the organization is by beginning a story and
Oh,
then letting everybody else tell their own story. And by the time we finished, we had
mm,
22,000 stories. Each person told this story, retold in their way. In the process of retelling, they found their meaning through it. They found themselves in their story, right?
oh my
And
gosh.
right, and that's how the
Ah,
organization shifted, right? I mean, there
that's
was
true.
all structural issues, performance pay, and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
But the fundamentals we and if we look at all the top
Mm,
leaders, Martin Luther King, what did he do? He
mm.
told a different story, right?
Look at Lincoln.
Lincoln,
I mean, you and I could probably list for the next 5 hours amazing people from all cultures and faiths and identities that were storytellers.
yeah. And we saw, in some respect, we have underestimated the power of this simple tool, right?
Yeah, you know what? Isn't that a beautiful word? It's simple,
Yeah,
and yet for some it may be so hard.
yeah. Teresa, thank you so much for
Oh
there's
yeah.
another exciting episode,
Oh,
and yeah, I think more to come. This story is
okay.
not finished. This
Well,
story is
okay.
not
Well,
finished.
all right. I will um put a pause in the moment, and the story will continue, and that would be my joy.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Okay. Take care.